All right, let's talk about the most important thing in long form improv or any improv in general, which is the suggestion, right? That's where the audience gets to participate. They set the tone of the show, they're creating what the show is going to be about. It's kind of like if this was the Big Bang Theory, the suggestion to me is the initial little spark that, does the Big Bang Theory, I guess, in the world of improv. Now, here's the thing when you get a suggestion, it's kind of up to you how you want to get the suggestion. I know I usually just come out and just say, can I get a suggestion of anything at all? And somebody will shout something and we just go with it. Some people will come out and say, can I get a suggestion of a line of dialogue? And then they use that line of dialogue to start a scene, right? Or you can get a suggestion of a location or an object or a profession or a relationship. I mean, sky's the limit and how you want to get the suggestion. Now, here's the thing you have to remember is number one, you can't turn the suggestion down. Remember, if you get a bad suggestion, like you have to go with it, right? Now, if you get a suggestion that is like offensive or hateful or anything like that, you can obviously just be like, well, let's get something else, right? And you're going to run into that, right? You'll have somebody in the audience and they're just, being a jerk and they'll shout out, something inappropriate. You do have the right then to, move on to somebody else and get a new suggestion. That's completely appropriate, right? But if you just get a poor suggestion, right? Like if you're like, give me a suggestion of anything and somebody shouts out like fork, you have to go with it, right? And here's the thing too, is you get it, you repeat it, and you just go, right? You can't let the audience know that you're confused because I've seen where like improvisers will get a suggestion and somebody will be like fork and then they're like, fork, great. And then, you can tell that their confidence is already from here to here. Even if it's the worst suggestion in the world, your confidence level has to be 1,000 to be like, fork, yes, fork, thank you. Boom, we're going to do this, right? Now, let's talk about the suggestion and how it becomes the spark to ignite a whole show. The big thing about the suggestion, and this is where a lot of improvisers fail, is they take the suggestion too literal. Right? Like if somebody shouts out fork, they pretend to be a fork, or it's all about eating with the fork, right? The whole scene becomes fixated on that suggestion, right? Like I remember one time I was watching a show and the suggestion was car, and then all the improvisers just got in and like they pretended like they were just driving cars on stage, and it seemed like 20 minutes of just people pretending like they were driving cars, and the scene went nowhere. So the thing is like a lot of improvisers will take the suggestion super literal. Now, here's the thing. Obviously, you're not supposed to do that, right? The suggestion is supposed to be more of an inspiration, right? It's supposed to inspire you to create some scene. But let's talk about why is it that improvisers will take the suggestion literally. And that all stems from your education, right? Because, when you're a kid, you're in school, your logical brain is taught to solve problems, give the correct answer, the 100% answer, and then you get some sort of reward. You get an A plus or a gold star, which releases endorphins. So your brain, your logical brain, is trained to literally follow instructions literally, right? Think of all of the things that you do, like when you're at work or you're at school or if you're playing a sport, there are instructions that you have to follow literally to the T, or else you will not get the result that you're looking for, right? And then what happens is you messed up and you get an F or a failure or it falls apart, right? So as a human society, we are trained to think in our logical brain literally to solve equations. And that's why a lot of improvisers tend to take the suggestion so literally, is because they're trying to give the 1,000% correct answer to that question. But here's the thing. You can't think of the suggestion as a question. You can't think of the suggestion as an order. You can't think of the suggestion as like direction, right? You have to think of it as inspiration. Because if you think of it as a question or direction or any of the other stuff, you will always take the suggestion too literal. And what happens is when you go too literal with the suggestion, it taps into your logic brain, which kills your creativity brain, and so on, kills the improv scene that you were about to create. It kills the scene even before the scene has even started. So again, when you get a suggestion, In improv, especially in long form improv, it's all about using the suggestion as inspiration. And I think one good way to think about that is like free word association, right? Like, so for example, if we go back to the suggestion of fork, which we talked about, when I get a fork, when I hear fork, I think breakfast. And then I think like bed and breakfast. And I think like lovely couple at a bed and breakfast. And then that's what the scene becomes, right? Like fork took me from point A to point Z, it's a bed and breakfast. So does that make sense, right? So when you get a suggestion, it's inspiration through free word association, right? So like if I got the suggestion of like tree, trees make me think of like a plant store or gardening or a park, right? Or paper products or building a house or a log cabin, right? So I'm thinking about all of those things, and I take kind of to the oomph degree, so that if the audience gives me a suggestion of tree, maybe my scene is I'm building a log cabin and I'm Abraham Lincoln, right? Do you see how I kind of got from the suggestion, which is an inspiration, which got me to kind of the spark that ignites the today's the day of the scene? Does that make sense? So again, remember, when you're getting a suggestion from the audience, is that it's an inspiration. So you have to just let your mind, your creative brain, just roam free and kind of wander to where that suggestion takes you. Obviously, sometimes for an improviser, like, for some of us, if you're a seasoned improviser, that can happen in like a split second. If you're just starting out, I would say then is do a lot of free word association at home, right? You can make some note cards and you can get some free word association. And what you can do is you can flip it over, see the suggestion, and then just see like how many degrees can you take it, right? So if the suggestion says sheep, sheep makes me think of wool, which makes me think of sweaters, which makes me think of department stores where people buy sweaters. So maybe the scene is about a guy buying a wool sweater at a department store. Today's the day I tell my girlfriend I don't want to buy a wool sweater. Does that make sense? So it's very important as an improviser that you really have to know how to take the suggestion as inspiration and use that to spark a scene, right? And obviously, here's the good thing too. Like if you're not good at doing that, remember, you can make the suggestion more specific, right? Like some improvisers who don't feel comfortable kind of throwing out there, give us a suggestion of anything at all. They kind of just go with a line of dialogue or an occupation or a relationship because see, that has a little bit more of a focus and that kind of takes it to another degree. But if you're just going to go out there and get a suggestion of this anything at all, you can't take it literal. You have to use it as inspiration. The suggestion is probably one of the most important things about improv because it literally starts the show. So you have to respect the way that a suggestion works to spark a scene.